Hello Year 3 and 4. Today we're going to be looking at subordinating conjunctions because in our non-fiction information text we need to vary the length of the sentences and make it really interesting. But to start with, a quick grammar starter. Where are the verbs? Which one's the verbs? A tunic was worn by rich Roman ladies and tunics were worn by Roman ladies. You did verbs last week or 2 weeks ago, so can you remember which ones are being or doing words? Okay, your answers are worn is the doing word. Oh, I've covered it up. Worn is the past tense of wear. Okay, so if she was worn. Then there's another one here, worn. But our tricky monster verbs are these words here, was and were. Okay, now was and were are the hard ones. They're monster verbs. They're really tricky to notice, but these sentences have got two verbs next to each other. Okay, so I'm just going to move that one out of the way. Why do we sometimes use were and why do we use was? Well, if the noun before it is plural, meaning there's more than one of it, we use the verb were. And if there's only one of them, we use was when we're doing past tense. So here we've got Romans were, because there's more than one Roman. So Romans were very good at blah, blah, blah. Or the gladiator was. If it was gladiators, we would have were. But we've only got one gladiator, so we're using was. And this one, the servants, it's plural, there's more than one of them, so we use were. Okay, so we'll try and remember that. And often you can pick it up. It sounds a bit funny if you say the gladiator were always, it doesn't make sense. Now, our subordinating conjunctions, can you see this picture here? There are loads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, blah, blah, blah. Loads of subordinating conjunctions. The ones that I use most are while. Here. I like to use because, that's a year 2 conjunction. We often use while, before and after. A lot of you have used already this year. But the ones I want us to focus on over the next few weeks are although, covered up the other one, and even though. But I don't think even though is there. So you now need to pause the video and quickly write 2 sentences about how you are feeling about being in a lockdown. Try to use 2 of the subordinating conjunctions. If I were doing this, I would put at home. I am sometimes bored because I can't go and play squash. And children in my class know that my favourite sport is squash. And I'm bored because I can't go and play squash. Or I always like to go for a walk before I eat my dinner. Not after, but before. Okay, so pause the video and write me 2 sentences using these conjunctions. I'll get rid of that one so you can see. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at sentences with conjunctions in them and identifying which is the main and which is the subordinating clause and how we can rearrange it to make it sound a little bit different. Now, we've got 2 parts of the sentence here. Now, what is the missing word? Slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese. Their masters ran out of food. So when the master ran out of food, let's have a little think of which ones might work. Now it might be after. Slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese after their masters ran out of food. That works. It might not be the best one though. It definitely wouldn't be before their, it could be. Before their masters ran out of food so they didn't get in trouble, maybe. Could it be if slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese if their masters ran out of food? That sounds better. But what about something like although? So on the other hand, even though. Slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese, although their masters ran out of food. Now that one does not make sense. You want something that is causal, something that is if or since. So if I put the word if there, it's in red. So this here is a clause in itself. A clause is something with a verb in it, okay? So we've got the word ran, and that's our verb. But does it make sense on its own? If their masters ran out of food, it doesn't make sense on its own. So we call that a subordinating clause, okay? So I'll just write that here. It's called a subordinating clause. Can you say that aloud, please? Subordinating clause. Can you shout it? Subordinating clause. Can you whisper it? Subordinating clause. Fantastic. Subordinating means it doesn't make sense on its own. But the back writing does make sense on its own. Slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese. It's just saying what they used to do. So this one we call a main clause. And what you'll be doing today is sometimes you'll have a main clause first, and sometimes you'll have a subordinating clause. And I'm going to give you sentences that I want you to change. Now, all you have to do is you pick up the subordinating clause. So the subordinating clause will start with a subordinating conjunction, which is those words here. And you get that and you start the sentence with it. Now I can hopefully just paste. So if I highlight that, copy and paste, but you'll have to write these sentences out, okay? So I put the subordinating conjunction clause first, then I put the main clause. But that's a bit silly, isn't it? Because it doesn't have the correct punctuation. I need a capital letter at the start and a full stop at the end. I then don't need a full stop in the middle. But instead of that full stop, I need to put a comma because it's at the end of the subordinating clause. If their masters ran out of food, comma, or in my classes we go, if their masters ran out of food, slaves went to the market to buy fish, bread and cheese. But slaves isn't a proper noun, we just need a lowercase, okay? And that is how you change a sentence with a main clause first into a sentence with a subordinating clause, okay? I'll do that one more time for another example. Ooh. So the sentence is, clothes needing a lot of sewing were rare. Rare means it wasn't very common. It didn't happen a lot. As, so another word for because or since, most needles were made from bone. So the first thing you need to do is you need to identify which one is the subordinating conjunction. The word as is my conjunction joining the two bits together. And after that conjunction is the subordinating clause. Okay, now this doesn't make sense on its own. That's why it's a subordinating clause. As most needles were made from bone. So we take that and we put it at the start of the sentence. We make sure that we start the sentence with a capital letter, and at the end of the subordinating clause we put a comma. As most needles were made from bone, we then want that main clause. Clothes needing a lot of sewing was rare, without the capital letter and a full stop at the end. Then read it aloud to make sure it makes sense. As most needles were made from bone, clothes needing a lot of sewing was rare. And we always have a space after that comma. Okay? So your challenge today is to convert sentences about school in the Roman era, so in the Roman times. So the subordinating clauses at the beginning. So all of the sentence I'll give you is the subordinating conjunctions in the middle and the subordinating clauses at the end. Your extension is to look at page 50, which I've put on the assignment, and write sentences that use subordinating conjunctions. But actually today, just converting those sentences is a good amount of work. Use your best handwriting and write them out and send them to your teacher. Okay, have a good day. Bye.